Hey everybody, welcome to Lip Rippin' Podcast. I'm your host, Ravi N, aka Ravasaurus. Thanks so much for joining me, I appreciate it. Good of you guys to come through. Thanks so much for stopping in. Good to see ya. Um, I actually have a couple of guests in the studio today. Mr. Cobbs and his mother are down in the studio because I believe he has an item called an exercaucer that he sits in and bounces around in, and I believe it is Finding Nemo in theme. Fishing related though, proper. Well, not fishing. It's kind of touchy. Nobody really want to talk about catching Nemo and eating him or catching him period. People would be upset at that thought, maybe perhaps. And so it's at least it's sea related or water related. So he's in the right studio. Um so here we are today. I believe suggestion from the audience. Vasanti gave me a subject that she thinks is worth talking about. Now, I gave her the one idea that I think is worth talking about and rejected all of her ideas. Because they were so good, they should be saved for a monumental episode like the 500th or the 50th. Maybe let's start with attainable goals. All right. So the quick story that I want to tell you guys is about when I took her and her friend, who shall remain nameless, just kidding, Cheryl, fishing to Little Lake Barrie, Ontario, one of my favorite honey holes and fishing locations. First actually brought onto that lake by none other than Bass Bizad, aka Benjamin, aka Fishing Massacre, aka the legend himself. He took me there, and boy, I tell you, if I ever get a chance to tell you about the first ever time I fished Little Lake with Bass Bizad, you guys are in for a doozy. Um, if you ever so get the pleasure, I'm not sure if Vish was asking me if I'm too loud or is this too loud, the Finding Nemo device. The answer is probably both. Or too loud. Just kidding. Do whatever you want. Where was I? Oh, yes. Little Lake Barrie, Ontario. One of the sweetest honey holes ever. If you want to catch non-stop hammer handle pike all day long and bucket mouth bass and bucket mouth bass, that's the place to go. And you could toss anything you want. You could toss crankers, you could toss top wats, you could toss Sankos if you want. I've never actually tossed a Sanko there because that was a little later on in my fishing career where the Sankos started becoming in the mix. But Little Lake, Ontario. So we go out. So needless to say, I think Vish had already been there. She'd already probably slapped up her first bass that you all have probably seen in that Instagram post of her freaking out while I forced her to hold it. Now, in retrospect, now that I look back on that, that's crazy that she held it, because I don't think there's been a fish even after that she held, which was brave of her that day. Probably trying to show me how cool she was. Like, oh yo, like. Or maybe, maybe, you never know. She's probably just trying to be like, oh yeah, like I'm cool or I'm tough. But then started screaming her head off as soon as she held on to it. Oh, courting. Oh my, I think that's a little rated R for this family show. Um, but dating? Yeah, I don't know. Anyways, so um, during this courting period, as Vish refers to it as, she somehow convinced me you take a rookie, take another rookie. Let's go double rookies to Little Lake, and let's have a fun time, right? I'm trying to say no, this isn't a good idea. Look at the weather, and it's an overcast day. Um, the editor, the producer, executive producer has made a correction. It was not a courting period. We were married. Good, good, good. Make this a little more G rated of an episode, you know. So, anyways, so we're out on Little Lake, and first of all, it's windy, it's choppy, the water's not very good conditions, and it's the three of us, me and 200-pound females, which is not adding to the fact that it's a choppy day and we're in a tin boat, aluminum tinny. So we go fishing or whatever, and Vish is casting, and casting in the wind. It's tough. It was a challenging day, choppy, choppy, choppy waters. Um, I think I was using a spinner that day, and actually was able to catch a largemouth that I took a photo of. I'll show you guys that photo on Instagram when this episode comes out. But yeah, that day was super super sketch and super windy. So we go out onto the lake, and I don't know how many of you have been on Little Lake, but it's full of weeds. Like from top to bottom, it's 20 foot of weeds. But that's what makes it good fishing. So the little 9.9 that I had, 9.9 horsepower motor, is like just chugging along, chugging along, chugging along. It sucked driving it, to be honest with you, in the wind. And so I'm with two rooks. I'm just helping out 24/7, untangling line, fixing line, putting bait on, switching lures, doing the old fishing guide flex. And I hadn't been retired for that long, so the guiding thing was still something that I was able to easily do for these ladies. And so I remember where I forget exactly the line that was said, but it was something along the lines of, oh yes, this was the line. It was perfect. So remember, I had said like I try to veer these two off of even coming fishing because the weather was shite and it wasn't a good idea. And so the line that I just love from that day is Vicious friend Cheryl goes to me, you know that you're driving this boat around in circles, right? And I'm like, I am not driving this boat around in circles. The wind is ripping the boat around. I'm trying to go from point A to point B, and the wind is ripping our tinny around and round and round in circles. Anyways, we slap up a couple of bass and maybe a skinny pike and kind of F off for the day, get out of there after like 3 hours of fishing. But it was fun. It was a good time. Can't remember if Vish caught one that day. Definitely Cheryl did not. Sorry to air out your scene there, Chopes, but you skunked, all right? You skunked. You didn't catch one. You'll never listen to this anyways. But Vish, I'll say that she cleared her name, but I can't recall. But she thinks she caught a big, small, and small, but I think she's confusing that from her first trip. But who knows? Well, just want to say thanks so much for joining me on today's boat ride. And today we had a couple other guests, as you guys know. There's one of them, and the other one signing off for the day. And I hope you all join me on another boat ride soon. Thanks so much for your time. And as always, hit me up on Instagram or at liprippingpodcast@gmail.com. Nice. Baby Cov's in the mix as always. And yeah, I hope to speak to you guys soon. I hope to see you guys soon and join me on another boat ride soon. Have a good one. Bye now.